This is a video I recommend. It's an interview on DAZN's YouTube channel with Hearn. And he talks about a lot of the things that it says here in the title. Canelo Alvarez, Joshua versus Wilder, and DAZN itself is a platform. But one of the interesting things he says in this video, in this interview, is that promoting in America, and he's only been doing it for, a year now? Obviously, he was promoting in America before DAZN. Remember, he did the deal with HBO with Danny Jacobs and whatnot. So there's that, but also I think in this interview he's more talking about DAZN, all right? His experience so far being a promoter on the DAZN platform. And he says that it has been more difficult than he expected. And he expected it to be difficult. But this has actually exceeded his expectations in terms of difficulty. And that is to do with the fact that, some people are going to say it's because of the Wilder situation. A lot of fans have turned on Hearn in America because of the Deontay Wilder issue. I don't think it's really anything to do with that, why Hearn's found it more difficult than he expected. I don't think it's got anything to do with the fans, the Wilder fan. Nothing to do with that. And why don't I think it's got anything to do with that? Well, because most Americans have got no idea who Deontay Wilder is. Yeah, he might have this little dedicated clique of fanboys online, but the rest of the American public, they've got no idea who Wilder is. And if they've got no idea who Wilder is, then they've got no idea who Hearn is. So you can't have a bad reputation when nobody knows you. And Hearn right now is still pretty much unknown in the United States, just like Deontay Wilder is. So I don't think the beef between Team Joshua and Team Wilder has anything to do, or let me not say anything, but I think it's got very little to do with the difficulties that Hearn is having as a promoter on DAZN in the US. I think the main difficulties that Hearn is having is not from the fans, but from the fighters. This is where the difficulty comes in, because there are obviously rival promoters out there who Hearn is essentially either trying to co-promote their fighters, like in the case of Gervonta Davis, or he's trying to poach fighters. Now, he's not trying to poach them from promoters, quote unquote, but he's trying to poach Al Haymon fighters. Al Haymon's not officially a promoter. We won't go into that because I've been into it before. He's not officially a promoter, but he behaves in many ways like a promoter. And for all intents and purposes, a lot of people consider him to be a promoter. So he's trying to poach a lot of Haymon fighters, and that's fair game because Haymon poached Golden Boy fighters, right? It's all business. It's all fair game as far as I'm concerned. Haymon's done it to other people himself. But Haymon and his stable of fighters are tight. And the reason why Haymon and his stable of fighters are tight, most of them, is because he has treated them very, very well. There's no question about it. I know now there's kind of a backlash against Al Haymon, particularly people who are pro-Hearn. There's a backlash against Haymon. And in fact, Haymon has always had a dedicated army of haters who have been praying for his downfall the whole time he's been in boxing. But the reality of it is, Al Haymon has treated so many fighters so well that they feel a sense of loyalty to him. A sense of loyalty that maybe extends beyond boxing. Because he actually has done things to help fighters outside of boxing with legal problems and stuff like that in their personal lives. Al Haymon's done this. And now he's being rewarded because a lot of these Haymon guys, they don't want to go nowhere because they actually may feel guilty. Now, don't get it twisted. Some of the Haymon guys have ended up with Hearn. Some of the Haymon guys are still working with Haymon. For example, Danny Jacobs is still working with Haymon even though he's signed to Hearn. And that may be the case for the other guys. But essentially what we're talking about here is we're talking about Haymon guys leaving PBC and going onto a different platform, in this case, DAZN. That's what we're talking about. And some of the Haymon guys, maybe most of the guys, will feel guilty about doing that. And also, it's not just to do with guilt. Heyman has treated them so well over the years that they feel like, you know what, I don't think Hearn can treat me as well as Al Heyman has treated me. So there is this strong bond that Heyman has with a lot of his fighters, which Eddie Hearn is finding very, very difficult to break. Very difficult to break. And the only way that it's really going to break is if Al Heyman loses pay-per-view on Showtime. And if Showtime bow out of boxing, then the Heyman fighters will be left with no choice, basically. They'll have to either go to Eddie Hearn on DAZN, Golden Boy on DAZN, or Bob Arum on ESPN. That's what's going to force their hand. But as long as Al Heyman has got Fox, as long as Al Heyman has got Showtime and PBC, a lot of them guys ain't going to leave. You know, they ain't going to leave, man. Even though they're not boxing very frequently, a lot of them would rather stay in that situation because they know how well Al Heyman has treated them, rather than what they perceive to be taking a gamble against Hearn, who they think is just a chancer. You know, he's just someone who's an opportunist, and they don't trust an opportunist. But one thing for Eddie Hearn, which is in his favor, is the positive reviews that he's been receiving from fighters that he has signed to DAZN in the United States. From people like Danny Jacobs, the word of mouth is going to get around that actually being promoted by Eddie Hearn is good. Word of mouth is going to get around from people like Demetrius Andrade, Tevin Farmer, etc. that being promoted by Eddie Hearn is good. They got money and you're treated very well. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Eddie Hearn gets on in the long run as a promoter on DAZN in the United States. I have to ask myself this question though, and you guys should ask the question too. Do DAZN need Eddie Hearn at this point? Do they need him? And look, I don't know the relationship that Hearn has with the actual personnel behind the scenes in DAZN. I'm talking about the people that run and own the company. I don't know what kind of relationship he has with them. But as an outsider looking in from a business perspective, I'm struggling to figure out what DAZN at this point needs Eddie Hearn for. Who does he have? Okay, he's got Danny Jacobs, he's got Andrade. All right, even one of them could lose. Is Danny Jacobs or Andrade going to become a star? In the United States, they might, but what if they don't? The next 2 years are crucial for Eddie Hearn. He needs a star. He either needs to sign a star or he needs to build one out of Andrade or Jacobs. And I'm talking about a big star, the equivalent of a pay-per-view star. That's what he needs to do. If he can do that, then his job's safe. And he'll get past his 2-year probationary period on DAZN, and he'll carry on for another 6 years or whatever the case may be. But there's no guarantee that in the 2-year probationary period that he's going to satisfy DAZN, the owners of that entity. And if he doesn't satisfy him, they might look at him as dead weight and cut him off. And if they do, so be it. You know, I don't care about Eddie Hearn. He's already a millionaire. I'm not going to feel sorry for him if he gets kicked off DAZN or dropped from DAZN and they promote Oscar De La Hoya as the main promoter on DAZN. I ain't going to leave. I mean, it is what it is. If they don't need him, they don't need him. And like I say, when DAZN signed Canelo, that was a very big deal. And if Eddie Hearn tries to say that he wasn't a little concerned in the back of his mind about possibly being sidelined by DAZN because Golden Boy are now on board and they've got dates to put on their own shows, if he claims that in the back of his mind he's not concerned about that, I'd be very dubious. Yeah, very dubious. He's spoken himself in this very interview, go watch it, about being on other networks before with promoters, you know, different promotional companies, and that those promotional companies on the same network were trying to block him and trying to make things hard for him. Yeah, because they see it as competition. And I'm telling you now, Golden Boy and Matchroom see each other as competition. And it's only going to be DAZN in the short term who will force them to work together. and force them to cooperate to a certain extent, because in the short term, DAZN needs that because it's trying to build itself and establish itself as a brand in the United States. So they need the two promoters to cooperate and have cross-promotional work going on. When I mean cross-promotional work, it's like I mentioned in videos previously where I've said, when Canelo fights, you can expect matchroom shows or matchroom fighters to be promoted before and after the Canelo show, maybe even during the Canelo show, even though it's a Golden Boy show. You can expect that to happen because, again, DAZN understand that they're building their brand. So they want all the fighters on DAZN to benefit from Canelo's star power. This is what they want. Why wouldn't DAZN want that? They do want that. And so they're going to put all these fighters and associate them with Canelo in order to build this platform, to build this network. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Golden Boy might not like that Eddie Hearn's fighters are riding the coattails of the Canelo hype train. You know, they might not like that. They probably don't like that, but that's what's going to happen. You know, anyway, we'll see if Eddie Hearn is successful. But at the end of the day, for me, as long as DAZN is successful, it's mission accomplished. If Hearn gets booted off after 2 years, gets dropped after 2 years, so what? As long as DAZN is there, it's providing much more affordable, elite level boxing for the fight fans. And that's going to help grow the sport in the United States again. And it's also providing a platform for fighters where they can fight a lot more frequently. And this is also a plus. So as long as DAZN succeeds, I'm all good. Eddie Hearn, meh, you know, like whatever, man. If he gets dropped, so be it. I ain't going to lose no sleep over that. I'm sure Golden Boy or whoever else will do a great job if Eddie Hearn does get dropped. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below about everything I talked about in this video. All right, it's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.